so many people. A lot of people were sick, but y'all surprised me, and that's fine. Before we get started, I want to take a second to pray for Pastor Mike and his wife as they kind of expect another little into this world. So let's open up in prayer, and we'll begin. Dear Lord, thank you for today. We want to just thank you that we're all here and pray for those who aren't, whatever reason that may be. We want to lift up Pastor Mike, his wife Kaylee, DJ, and Kelly as they expect a new gift into this world. They are a precious gift to this congregation, and we just ask that the delivery would go smooth, that it would just be the best experience for their family, that everything would just go the exact way it's supposed to go, that there'd be no hiccups, there'd be no complications, that it would just be an enjoyable experience. We pray for DJ as he's the oldest now, and that he has siblings to lead. We pray for Kelly as she becomes the middle child and everything that can bring. We pray for health in their family and their home. We pray for Kaylee as she draws strength. We thank you for the gift that it is for children, and just ask for a special blessing on them. Please remove me from this equation here this morning, Lord, that your word would do what it always does best, and that is speak for you and speak for itself, that folks would walk away with hearing your word, and we just love you and ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Rick Hallett. I am not one of the pastors here, which gives me a little bit of leeway, and I can say things that they normally can't, which is awesome. But I'll try to do my best here. And so, if you weren't here last week, Jason, where he left off was chapter 23 of 1 Samuel. Today we're going to be in all of chapter 24, but just kind of where we left off in 23 was David was on the run, and it's kind of like looking at it and reading that little last bit of 23. It's kind of like a movie scene if you read it. You have David and his guys on one side of a mountain, and then you have Saul and his guys, and they're just watching each other, and they're running, and they're going towards a spot where eventually the mountain will come together. And if you look up this place, actually geographically, there's like this giant split in the earth for quite a ways. And so it'd be weird to just be like running and seeing your enemy just across, and you're running, and you're like, you know that you're about to like get into this big battle, and just like a typical movie, some random messenger comes up to Saul and says, hey, you got to turn around, the Philistines are attacking, we have to like dip out and go, you got to leave David for later. And so then David's men are probably running, and they're on horseback, and they just see Saul have to turn around, and so they end up finding their way to this place called En-Gedi. En-Gedi is one of the lowest places on earth. It's not the lowest place, but it's one of the lowest places. And I don't know what you think about, because this whole story is about David, and he's in a cave. And if you think about being on the run, in hiding, living in caves, like you think this nasty, dirty, moldy, like just, it doesn't sound like the best time, but that is quite the opposite of what En-Gedi is. En-Gedi is a oasis. It is a lush paradise. Like, I'm talking best case scenario, that's what's happening for David and his men. They're getting rest, and the words En-Gedi actually stands for, what is it, goats? Something to do with goats. Anyways, there's these ibex goats that are there. So there's plentiful food, there's fresh springs of water, everyone gets to just kind of relax. There's a million caves, so it's great for hiding, and so that's kind of where we find David today. And so let's pick up in chapter 24. We're going to read through all of 24, which is a bit, and then we're going to kind of to dive in. So please turn, if you will. If you got your phones, feel free to bring those out. 1 Samuel chapter 24. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men of all of Israel and went to seek David and his men in the front of the wild goats' rocks. He came to the sheepfolds by the way where there was a cave. Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave, and the men of David said to him, here is the day of which the Lord said to you, behold, I will give you your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you." Then David arose stealthily, cut off a corner of Saul's robe, and afterward David's heart struck him, because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. He said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed." So David persuaded his men with these words and did not permit them to attack Saul. Saul rose up, left the cave, and went on his way. Afterward, David also arose and went out of the cave and called for Saul, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and paid homage. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of your men who say, 'Behold, David seeks your harm'? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you today into my hand in the cave. And some told me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not put out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, see the corner of your robe in my hand. For the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see there is no wrong or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you hunt my life to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you, but my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb and the ancients say, out of the wicked comes wickedness, but my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. May the Lord therefore be judge and give sentence between you and me, and see to it and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand." As soon as David finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, "Is it your voice, my son David?" And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, "You are more righteous than I, and you have repaid me with good, whereas I have repaid you with evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt well with me, and that you did not kill me when the Lord put me in your hands. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away safe? So may the Lord reward you for good and for what you have done to me this day. And now behold, I know that you shall surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me, therefore, by the Lord, that you will not cut off my offspring after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house." And David swore this to Saul when Saul went home, and David and his men went up into the stronghold. So today, it started out like we were going to read about vengeance. And I think we can all rally behind that, right? That's just kind of deep down in us. We find David, he's running for his life. King Saul is hunting him down with 3,000 chosen soldiers. These are elite guys. These aren't just random dudes. At this point, David's got about 600 men, so they're grossly outnumbered. And the moment comes, right? Saul wanders into this cave to go to the bathroom. If there was ever a crowded men's room that existed, that would be one, right? 600 men. I've never seen one yet, but that would be pretty rough. And they're all in there. Just happens to, everything lined up perfectly to where it'd be like, now is the time, right? The day has come. This is your moment. David's men are all geeked about it. They're like, this is it. This is your time. We can do it, and no one's going to know. But David refuses to kill Saul. Instead, he cuts off a corner of his robe, and even that makes him really upset. Just cutting off a little bit of his robe. And later he confronts Saul, shows mercy, and leaves vengeance to God. So this chapter answers a question that every believer faces. What do you do when you finally have the chance to get even, right? What do you do when you finally have a chance to get even? We all know what it's like to be wronged. Someone lies about you. Maybe it's a coworker. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a friend. Someone takes credit for your work. Someone hurts your family. Someone sends that email and hits reply all, right? Suddenly you're not just saved, you're saved but plotting, right? The vengeful part of us starts coming out. Like, we're gonna take care of this, right? We imagine conversations that never will happen or will ever take place. We have these fake conversations between these people. I'll respond in the spirit, but with footnotes and screenshots, right? David had the perfect opportunity for revenge, but instead of acting like most of us would, he showed us what it looks like to trust God when emotions are loud and righteousness is silent. Today we learn these three truths about trusting God with injustice. Point number one, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I feel like that's a life lesson that just kind of goes over everything, but it's definitely right here. David had the right opportunity. He had the support of his men. He even had what looked like a spiritual confirmation, right? Of all the caves in En-Gedi, Saul chose the one cave that him and his men are in. He's got all of his guys on his side. This is the day the Lord spoke of. But opportunity is not the same as permission. Let me say that again. Opportunity is not the same as permission. David understood something that we often forget. A door being opened doesn't mean God opened it. Sometimes it's just an unlocked door called temptation. David refused to take the throne by sin, even though the throne had already been promised to him. The whole open door analogy of God, I've been in church my whole life, and I've heard, God opens doors and he closes others. And I kind of really banked on that for a while, and then over the years, that has been refined in my experiences with the Lord. Because we're almost taught, or people, you'll hear this in church circles where it's pray for God to open doors and close the ones that he doesn't want for you, which is a fine prayer to say, but that's not where it should end, right? Saying that prayer doesn't throw out a safety net for you to just go and act and do whatever you want, because you said a prayer, so any open door from this point forward is going to be of the Lord, and any closed door is not. Sometimes open doors are temptation. Sometimes the Lord is on the other side of the door with his forearm on it saying, how hard are you willing to work to open this thing? Sometimes an open door is the devil just waiting for you to walk right through. And sometimes closed doors are not a no, it's just not right now. And you need to wait because you're not patient, and most of us aren't. But that doesn't mean that we constantly pray for that and let it go. See, because the golden thread through that prayer and through David's life is there's one consistent thing, and that is David exercising his plugged-inness with God. He is in communion with God. He is devoted to God. He's not just saying a prayer that the Lord would take care of things and then going blindly about his life. He's staying connected. He is after God's own heart, right? That's where we need to take that example from. He's not just throwing something out there saying, I've done my due diligence, I've read my Bible, I've approached the Lord about this, and now I can just go and make any decision, and then if it goes bad, I'll blame the Lord for it, right? Because I acted the way I was supposed to. God was supposed to close that door, but he didn't, so therefore I must have been allowed to go through it. We must stop justifying wrong actions just because they're available to us. You can say a cutting remark, but should you? You could manipulate the situation, but should you? You can prove people wrong, but should you? Maturity in Christ is not measured by what you can do, but by what you refuse to do. Before acting, ask God, does this honor God, or does it just satisfy me? Is this a me thing, or is this a God thing? I don't know if this applies to everybody, but it's very personal right now, and that is maybe this time of the year, right? Maybe some of you made that New Year's resolution to be more fit, to eat better, to be healthy, and you're still running that, but real life has taken over. For me personally, I struggle with baked goods. My wife will tell you this is true. Donuts are the worst. And so the other day we went to Meijer with the kids. Liam saw a donut hole. He's like, Daddy, can we get donuts? It's an automatic yes in my house. Ever ask for donuts, it's a yes. But what he didn't know was 2/3 of whatever donuts we buy are mine right from the gate. And that's not dad tax, that's just lack of self-control on my end. Now, I am well aware of my demons through the day, but that version of Rick is very different than 3 a.m. Rick. 3 a.m. Rick is off the charts. That guy, I can't take any accountability for him. That's the devil's hour. And many of you know I have a dog, Bella, and I don't know if she's used the wrong way, but she likes to wake me up in the middle of the night to go out to the bathroom. Well, I'm not going to stand outside or by the back door while it's freezing, so I go to the kitchen where it's warm. And sometimes there's donuts there. And sometimes and you're in this weird state, right, where you got like one eye open and you're just trying to stay as close to asleep as possible, but because it's really hard to fall back asleep if you fully wake up. And next thing you know, you look down, you got a tub of donuts and they're in your hands. You don't know how it happened. And you're like, well, they're going to go bad in like 2 days, right? And nothing's worse than like a hard, dried out donut. That's just sad. And so you're like, I'm not going to be wasteful. Like, it would be wasteful not to eat it. I should eat this. It's here. I'm here now. The opportunity presented itself. You could say it's a divine appointment. Why else did the Lord allow the dog to have to go out? I'm the one who has to take. It just, everything lines up, right? But that's not wisdom. That's opportunity theology. Just because it's available doesn't mean it's righteous, right? David didn't eat the donuts. Point 2. Trusting God means letting God handle justice. This one's going to sting a bit. David says something radical. The Lord judge between me and you. That sounds spiritual until you realize what he's truly giving up. He's giving up the last word. Some of us are not good at that. He's giving up the satisfaction of revenge. Again, not an easy thing. And what I would say is the hardest part is he's giving up the timeline of justice. How soon will vengeance come? We want God to judge immediately and preferably while we watch, right? We want a front row seat of people getting what they deserve for wronging us. But God's justice is not microwave justice. It is crockpot justice. Low and slow. That's the name of the game. Because that's where we learn stuff. David trusted that God has truly called him so God can defend him. If God called him to be king, if he anointed him and he had Samuel come anoint him, then surely that same God can defend him and keep him alive to see it through. He doesn't need to act. He doesn't need to step in. So we need to stop trying to manage outcomes that belong to God. Some of you in here today are exhausted because we are constantly trying to defend ourselves, correct misunderstandings about ourselves, fighting battles that God never assigned us to fight. And it makes us exhausted. And it makes us bitter and angry. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to fix every lie. You don't have to avenge every word that's against you. If God is big enough to call you, he is big enough to vindicate you. Let God carry out what you were never meant to hold. Some people treat conflict like customer service disputes, right? Kids these days, I hate that saying, kids these days didn't know that Amazon used to be a bookstore. You couldn't buy music or movies or anything on the earth. And there definitely wasn't 2-day shipping, right? Mom, I'm sorry for the story, you didn't know this, but when I was younger, me and my best friend used to have to order things out of magazines for you kids. And there was a magazine full of airsoft pistols. Not like just like today's airsoft, right? And so my buddy and I were like, ooh, you would fill out your little information, tear it out, put it in an envelope, and get stamps. All of this might be foreign to you youngsters. And you send it in, and then you would have to wait. Who knows how long for something to arrive in the mail, right? And that was anticipation. That was Christmas in July. And we sent away for these 2 pistols that looked awesome. Our parents didn't know. And so we were very diligent for about 2 weeks, making sure that we were around the mailbox area for about a 2-hour gap almost every day. This was in the summer. To make sure that the mailman was cut off and Mom and Dad would not know. And we eventually got the things. We opened it up, and to our surprise, they were like kids' toys. They were junk. They were just garbage, barely shot, and it was just a big letdown, right? So we don't have the 2-day shipping. We don't have instant returns. We don't have any of that. And so that's kind of tainted us because that's kind of how we want our vengeance. Lord, I submitted this prayer 20 minutes ago. I'd like an update. I've also have screenshots. I'm watching the timer, like what's the deal? We want heavenly justice with package tracking, right? We want to know when it's coming because we want to be there. We want to see it happen. But God says, trust me. I'm not Amazon. David trusted without tracking. Point 3. A tender spirit is stronger than a sharp sword. David didn't even feel good about cutting Saul's robe. Think about that. Most of us would say, I showed restraint. I deserve a medal. Look at me. I'm such a good Christian. I didn't kill the dude when he deserved it, and it was all there. Instead, David said, I went too far. That hurt his soul. That's because spiritual strength is not measured by how much you can do, but by how sensitive your heart is to God. The closer you walk with God, the more you become of His attitude, His motives, and His pride. You can feel it. That's where, when we go back to asking for help and praying that God would open doors or of opportunities, that He would make it clear, there's steps involved. You have to be close with the Lord to get your answer. That's where maturity as a Christian comes from. That's where you learn that if you're asking God for something, He's not just going to give you the answer. He's going to confirm it so that you know it's from Him. Because feelings are terrible, and emotions are awful, and they're wrong. Sometimes we get stirred up in the Spirit, and that's accurate, which makes it even messier. Because how do we know if it's the Spirit, or how do we know it's Rick? Because Rick's not the wisest, right? He makes poor decisions at 3 a.m. at the fridge. I can't trust things. So God puts people, and He puts His Word in our life so that we can fall back to it. That's where our strength comes from. The Lord will confirm things. You have to be diligent and active in your prayers. We don't just pray and then allow God to do His thing and then just be ignorant. That's not how prayer life works. That's not how being a Christian works. That's not how deepening your walk with Christ works. Ask God to keep your heart soft when life is hard. A hard heart says, I deserve better. A soft heart says, Lord, keep me right, even if others are wrong. The real danger in suffering is not what others do to you, it's what bitterness tries to do inside you. Guard your heart more than your reputation. Let me say that again. Guard your heart more than your reputation. How else are our coworkers, our family, our friends supposed to know that we're different, that we belong to Christ? If we act just like them, if we act like the lost, then the lost will be just as confused and just as lost. I don't know if any of you have ever had or will ever have, the blessing or the opportunity to buy a brand new car, right? Take your stance on that however you want. But if you did, or if you have, when you get a tiny scratch on a brand new car, you feel it. like in your bones. It's physical pain because you're like, ugh. My dad used to always say, when you buy a new car, you should just throw a rock at it because it's going to happen, and it would feel better if it came at your hand and not someone else's. I've never seen him do that personally, but he says that. I detail cars, and I have a business in which I do that. And I see every type of customer under the sun. I see the guy who buys, a $130,000 pickup truck, and that's just bananas to me. But like they'll comb over the whole thing. They're looking at every ounce, every bug gut, every little thing, and they're like, oh, this was here, and I always feel really bad because when you buy a new car, the paint is never perfect, and they don't know that until I bring out some of my fancy lights to show them just how jacked up the paint already is right off the lot. And so, like, it hurts them, but it's an education thing for me. Now, if you're like me, and you drive 20-year-old cars, you start to hear a new noise while you're driving. And you just think, well, that's a part of the orchestra now, and we're just going to roll with it, right? And it's just things, it makes weird noises, there's scratches. Krista, we just got her a new used car last fall, and the inside is like the nicest I've ever seen in a car. And the outside had scratches and stuff all over it, and it was like, yeah, but this thing's pretty stinking nice, for the price it was. Like, it's an upgrade, and you learn to accept it, right? It doesn't bother you as much. Well, that's how our hearts can be, and we have to be very aware that our hearts can be like the old car. We stop noticing the damage, right? Oh, it's just this, it's just that. This person wronged me at work, and I kind of held on to that, or this traumatic thing happened to me when I was a teenager. And we just hold on to it, and we stop noticing the damage, and we stop noticing how it's letting bitterness build in our hearts, how it affects anger, how it affects how we view a church. I know too many people that won't come to a church because they got hurt by one. And that's insane to me, because that's why we're all here. We're all messed up and need help. So you should expect messed up things and forgiveness. Like, that's where forgiveness needs to live. Love needs to live here. We have to refuse, just like David did, to let our soul get in the way. And just get that way and just get mad. We have to keep the new car sensitivity towards God. This story is not just about sparing an enemy. It's about refusing to become someone different while waiting on God. David teaches us, don't grab what God hasn't given yet. Don't fight battles God hasn't assigned. Don't harden your heart while you wait. Anyone can trust God when life is fair, right? It's not that hard. That's usually when our faith gets the strongest, is when things go south. Everything's a mess. That's when our prayer life kicks up. That's when our Bible reading kicks up. But once that storm starts to calm, we relax. We get lazy. We're like, oh, he's giving me a break, and so I can coast for a while. It's not hard to trust God when life is fair. When I was a younger kid, I quickly learned that it seemed like the world moved in this weird cyclical cycle. Good things, good times, and bad things. And it seemed like that's how my life went. There was no time frame set on either one of those areas. Sometimes the whole year would be terrible, and I just never got better. And then sometimes it would only be like 2 days, right? And I learned that there was good times and bad times. But what that should have done earlier on is drawn my attention to how important consistent faith is. Not just coming to church when we feel like it, or coming to church or reading our Bible or praying when things are rough. It says more about you when you read when times are good. When the Lord's blessing you. When you're pointing out to your kids, like, look at what the Lord has done for us. It takes faith to trust him when you're hiding in a cave, watching your enemy walk in, holding a knife, and choosing mercy. That is where character is formed. That is where calling is proven. That is where we become people after God's own heart. Right? That should be the goal. David was not perfect. We will see that. We have seen that. He's not Jesus, but he makes really good decisions in terms of what he's about. And God is what he's about. And living his life the way God would have him and allowing him to move and do whatever he wants in his life. Some of you might be here today and there's a family feud going on. Maybe there's stress at work with coworkers or your boss. Maybe there's some vengeance on your mind. Maybe someone said something awful about you at high school or middle school. There's drama taking place. And you just want to take the knife to everything. You want to burn it down because that would give you what you think the most reprieve from it all. But I can tell you that the Lord's on the other side of whatever your situation is. And this is probably a test. And this is where you learn about God. This is where you experience God. When you hear older Christians say, they have godly experiences or mountaintop experiences, this might be one of those things. He's waiting to see how you're going to respond. And you might learn that when you make the right decision, there's some crazy blessings that are coming your way. But you'll never know it if you give into bitterness, if you give into revenge, if you give into anger, and you hold on to that stuff. So what do you need to release to God today? Where have you been trying to take control instead of trusting him? Lay down the knife. Trust the Lord. Let God write the ending. Because when you let God handle justice, you're finally free to walk in peace. And I'm telling you, from personal experiences, heavenly peace is way different than earthly peace. And it's only one that you can taste if you trust. If you build on your faith and you act on those things. It's almost like you're untouchable. And it's a strange feeling because that's not what the world teaches. With that, I'm going to close us in prayer, and then Maya's going to come up and we'll sing a last song, and you guys can go about your way. Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for warmer weather coming and having it, and just being reminded that you have put the seasons there to give us reminders of how you work, Lord, that nothing is forever, that there are good times ahead, there is rest ahead, there is changes, Lord, that nothing stays the same with you. I pray for everyone in this room and those who couldn't make it today. I pray that anyone facing hardship, where they just